Becky Strachan from Northumbria University. We tried to tackle the first 4 questions that we were given. They sort of blended all into one, and we probably considered them all at various different stages. But we did spend quite a lot of time talking about some of the issues. Then we finally did get onto some actions. So if I outline some of the issues first. We did talk about perceptions. We started with perceptions. We did think that was a really big issue for the industry. And that idea that you just might walk into Google. And we talked to there being quite a geeky image. And we also talked slightly about the gender, that we don't have a complete solution to the gender issue. But it hasn't really improved in most areas in the past few years. We talked about the shortage that's coming up. So there's going to be a need for about 900,000 jobs coming up. Mainly, most of those seem to be technical. And in 2017, apparently all jobs, irrespective of whether they're in a technical area or not, will require about 10% coding skills. Okay, so obviously that's a big issue, and obviously we'd like our young people going into some of those jobs. We also talked about, and there was evidence that some industry are employing science and maths graduates rather than computer science graduates. And we explored that a bit and why that is. And it seemed to be that science and maths were coming through with some of the thinking and problem-solving skills that were needed. And we did spend quite a bit of time talking about apprenticeships and what a complex system that is. And the idea that it's quite low paid too, and that's quite off-putting for some of the young people, I think. But it is a complex system. And we have different systems in England, Scotland and Wales to add to that complexity. We talked about a system of learning and work and trying to bring those together. Okay, so not just going to university or college to learn, but actually could you do something where they're in industry a bit, in college and university a bit, and so on. And that seemed really valuable and probably echoes what this table said about, you know, you get much more value from learning when you're in a job and can apply it to the job area. We did talk a bit about the job titles, reflecting on what Maggie had said at the beginning about there being loads of different job titles. And we need to do something about graduate jobs. And there was this, again, it's a perception that people aren't graduating from computer science and getting jobs at the end, but the figures that are given on that reflect that whole spectrum of computing and some of the softer areas of computing that aren't so easy to get jobs from. So I think we need to think about that. There was also, when we talked on the table, and the student that we had on the table was talking about how difficult it was for them to get a graduate job, and they had applied for loads of jobs and not actually got a job. So there is some help needed around that, we think. Okay. We talked a bit about parents and how important they are. And I think one of the problems is a lot of parents have come through an age that isn't as digital as it is now. So they don't have the skill set to help the kids. And somebody suggested that we should all watch the video, It's the Ruddy Future, which is about 4 young people talking about the future and the digital future. And there's also a perception amongst the workforce in most of our areas, and we have it in our university, that's IT services. And they don't see that actually IT underlies much of what we do. And actually is really, really important, and more important than utility services. We talk now, actually, if IT goes off, you know, it probably has more of an effect than if the electricity goes off. So IT is important everywhere. And there was also this, we do need to engage young people and make sure they're interested in it. We needed a better link from graduates to industry, and industry can influence the curriculum at schools and colleges and universities, and they probably need a greater influence on that curriculum. And I think one of the other areas that we talked about was industry ranges from the very small, from the micro businesses, right through to the very large companies. So as a sector, it has that huge range, and that's quite difficult, I think, to get across, again, to young people. And lastly, we talked about teachers and how a lot of the teachers in schools, certainly in secondary school, have probably been moved into teach computing, and that's not necessarily their main core subject, and they're actually being told to teach it rather than actually have a passion for it. So that might be something we need to think about. So then we finally got onto some actions, okay, and I hope I have some of these up, but do chip in, guys, if I've got any of these wrong or you want to add anything else. We did think that actually a one-stop shop on digital for young people might be really helpful. we did talk, there's nowhere that somebody could go to see what are the careers in the industry or what skill sets they might need. So maybe just one place where they could go and have a look at all of that. And then we talked about widening that out, so actually it would help parents and teachers as well. And they could go there and find information too. We did have somebody from Scotland on our table, and they said that they had one body on the qualification side, and that might help with the apprenticeship side too. Whereas actually in England we have loads of bodies. So in Scotland it's the SQA, is that right? Yeah. And that's been helpful, I think, in Scotland in paving the way, and maybe we should do something similar in England, or maybe join the two together depending on how the vote goes in Scotland. We did talk about schemes with industry, and that was quite important, and we did have some offers on the table from some of the industry people there about, and they had run quite successful summer schemes, so taking students into their industry in summer, and that was paid actually, and they did see it was quite important that it was paid, and that would give them a flavour. And we generally talked about that sort of how you give work experience to young people going through with placements, with projects, and industry coming in and giving projects and so on. And we touched again, because of that range of industry from micro to large, that you might again need some sort of dating service to bring those two together, because actually it's quite hard for micro businesses to put opportunities up and for education establishments to see what's there. So that was another one that might be a dating service around it. And then the last one I had was around teachers, and one of the problems I think with IT, and it's not true of other subjects, is it does move very quickly, and they don't have space in the school day to upskill. So they are teaching all the time. So I think one thing that you could do is actually give them space to be trained and upskilled during the actual day, instead of having to do it in their spare time.